We are live. Good morning from Switzerland and Georgia, or where are you right now, Ivo?
I'm in Georgia, exactly. Yeah, enjoying the last days of a warm summer.
Oh, nice. Here it's very rainy today near the Lake Constance. Later I will go to Constance, where I studied, so to Germany, and have a look around who's still there.
You
And
cross international waters on the lake, visit the pirate radio stations.
yeah, maybe it's very interesting the condominium in the Lake Constance area. But that's for another topic. And today we have some unrelated topic to this, are walnuts. So we will just wait 2 more minutes and then we start telling you about it.
Yeah, exciting things happening for sure. It's really busy now.
Yeah, I was at a conference yesterday here in Mülheim, in Modelhof, Lifetime Liberty Conference, where all the free private city projects were presented. So that was quite nice to be introduced to those projects. So I hope we will do some at some point as well, Ivo.
Yeah, you mean a free private city in Georgia?
No, not necessarily in Georgia, but anywhere in the world. Yeah.
I'm down for whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll get started in 1 minute. We will start. We will do it in English since we have international base of people interested in our project. So you will get all the updates very soon.
Yeah, recently more and more locals are starting to become interested. Today we have Kazakhstan coming there and looking at the project. So yeah, even the locals are starting to notice.
But Kazakhstan are not locals, are they?
Yeah, I mean, extended locals, like the Central Asian community is taking note of. They are a big producer of walnuts, actually, and the main reason they are coming is because interested in buying, the first harvest. So hosting them there. Let's see what comes around.
Okay, great. Maybe let's just start. I leave the word to you, Ivo. Yeah, for those who don't know, Ivo went to Georgia around 5 years ago, and for around 4 years we have this project together, the walnut plantation Khachiti, and Ivo will tell you a bit more about it.
Yeah, I can share some.
Yeah, you can share it. I can put it on the screen.
Okay, cool. Try. Oh shit! It says I have to restart my computer for it to, because I have to grant some access.
To restart your computer?
Yeah, it's like some Apple security changes have to be made, and I have to restart.
Okay. With Apple, okay.
Oh, fuck's sake. Or, I don't know, let's see. Maybe it works also without it. Or is it working? I think it
Yes, it's working. Yeah, I just added to the stream. Just now.
Okay, cool. All right. How do you do this? Slideshow. Okay, let's get started. Yeah, hello from me as well, one more time. I'll give you a brief end of the season recap. From now it's the 4th year, that our project has been ongoing. So it's been a very interesting season for us this year. If some of you recall, like we talked about, I think 6 months ago in March, and last time at the start of the season, I gave a short update of, like, it was a very difficult time actually, because it was very wet and cold, actually as wet and cold as it hasn't been for decades, the winter. We were struggling with many pests actually at the start of the season. Additionally, we had problems with pollination, already difficult in the early years, but because of the moisture, it made it increasingly difficult to actually get pollination going. And as a result of that, we actually estimate that we were not able to pollinate many of the nuts that on the female trees hung. So just to get the idea for there's pollinated trees, male trees, which are about 6% of the orchard, and then 97 or 94% of female trees, and of those we may have lost, I think, almost half of the nuts that we were unable to pollinate, simply because it was too moist in the orchard. With that said, our harvest expectations going into the season were actually really low. And yeah, whether or not that is turned out to be true, I'll talk to her about this in a moment. But yeah, generally speaking, it's not a big concern, I would say, because in the early years, when you grow the tree, it's kind of secondary, whether you want to achieve high yields or not. Of course, you'd rather have more yield than less yield, but even if only 50% of the nuts are pollinated, and you lose 50% of what your potential harvest is, that may just be like half a kilogram per.
I mean, we are far from full production, right? So,
Yes, exactly.
Compared to full production, how many percent is now? Even in a good year?
So you're talking, the first year, the fourth year, you talk about 5% of the production capacity of a fully grown tree. So that's why it's really, secondary to look at high yields. What is much more important is essentially to grow a healthy tree that is able to produce large quantities in the future. So in the early years, you're much more focused on, having the tree, supplying it with the right nutrition and growing and shaping the tree so that it can, grow in a way and use as much of the sunlight and extend into all the areas to eventually have a lot of lateral growth and produce a lot of nuts in the future. With that said, I believe actually the challenges that we had this year were very educational for David, our operational manager, and actually for the whole team of agronomists working this year. It's been a really steep learning curve, something that, looking back, we are quite grateful of. So with all the skepticism aside, let's actually take a look at how the orchard looked like. Here, just short impression for those who don't know what the project looks like. In red, this 39 hectare orchard is the plot number 1 that we started first, which is now at the end of its 4th season. And plot number 1 has actually been, somewhat of a problem child in the previous years. 2 years ago, we had the frost damages, which actually forced us to trim down the tree, and we lost some valuable growth. If you recall our last conversation in March, we made some upgrades to the irrigation system because, as we learned throughout 2 years, actually the trees are able to absorb in this soil environment much more water. So we increased, we actually rebuilt the irrigation system there and switched to a 3-line irrigation system. And we're curious to see, how this would impact growth. And I can say overall, from a growth perspective, in this orchard, it was very successful. Here, for example, this is the picture I showed you last year with the view of the plot number 1. And this is actually a video. And this is the trees at the end of this season. Overall, the climate has been actually very good, despite the initial challenges. We had a summer which was not too hot, so we were actually able to have continuous growth throughout the season. Now, at the end of the season, growth has slowed down at the right time. 2 years ago, where we had the problem with the frost, for example, we had a very warm late season, so the tree continued to grow. This year we were able to address this better, and the tree stopped growing right early September, and they're now actually ready. The bark has hardened, and we don't see much risk of potential frost this year. Looking around us, we are actually quite lucky, because there were several very severe hailstorms in Cajeti that impacted many farmers, particularly wines, but none of those hit us, and we managed to pass the season without any major issues. Mortality in plot 1 has been close to none. Trees are now in their 4th year. They are strong already, and we didn't have any issues there. When it comes to harvest, like I said, given how difficult the start of the season was, we were actually very unsure how much we would harvest, if we'd harvest at all. And that being said, like, we started harvesting about 10 days ago. We're actually taken by surprise of how successful things have gone. So here you can see one of the nuts that we just harvested. We have an average of about 70 nuts per tree. Nut size is actually fantastic. Most of them are jumbo sized and light colored. So overall, for us, comparing to the early start of the season, this has actually been a great surprise of the last few weeks. I'll go into talking about the harvesting a bit later and in more detail. Now let's look at plot 2 as well. So plot 2 is the plot of 36 hectares, which is here in black, right below our farmhouse. And while plot 2 was affected by freezing damages 2 seasons ago as well, they have been actually less severe. And here on the left is the picture that I showed you last year. And now on the right, you can see the tree at the end of its 3rd season. We have had a better irrigation system, the same that we have upgraded now in plot 1. We've had that 3-line irrigation in plot 2 from the start. And we're actually, we can see how much that has helped the tree grow over the few years. We're actually able to harvest some small quantities this year from plot 2 as well already, as the yield of this plot 2 is about 3 times as high as the yield in plot 1 was last year. Now, going forward, plot 3, it's here in the front in this light red. It's a 10.5 hectare plot, which we planted about 2 years ago. Most of it is Chandler on Regia, with a few, about 1 hectare of them, Chandler on Bludge. Luckily, this plot avoided frost altogether 2 years ago, as the trees were just being planted. Overall, the project has actually been performing excellent, with no, or like almost no complaints whatsoever. Here again, this is the picture that I showed you from about June of 2020. And now we prepared, these are the trees, how they look like a year later. So they're actually it's been a really fantastic development in this year, in this orchard. And yeah, lastly, plots 4 and 5 here in blue and in white. In blue, it's these have been added both at the start of this season, where a big preparation project that we've worked on used that last actually year. I talked about this to make major improvements there, built 2 new lakes, gigantic new lakes, and have really done a lot of development there. The left in light blue is Chandler on Regia, while the one in white on the bottom is mostly Howard on Regia. Here we are also very happy with the results. Here on the left you can see the Chandler, while on the right you can see the Howard tree. Just to give you an idea how well this has been, we made some tests about the root development, and each of these trees had on average about 2.1 meters of roots development in each radius. Like I said in the beginning,
What's the main difference between them, Ivo?
So there are two different varieties. The left is Chandler, which is the most common variety used, which we have also by and large are using as well. The right is the Howard variety. They are actually both Californian varieties, which were developed about at the same time, both at the UC Davis in California, by different professors. And well, there are just minor differences. They produce very similar type of nuts. The Chandler, on average, is a bit more easy to grow, while the Howard is a very strong grower, but a bit more sensitive to the environment. The main difference why we've chosen to grow Howard is that Howard trees are a bit ripening a bit earlier. So you can harvest them on average about 10 days, 2 weeks earlier than the Chandler variety. And that enables us to use our harvesting equipment in the future more efficiently and gives us more time to harvest when the harvest is due. Because we can see that already this year, even though we have a harvest which is, less than 5% of less than 0.5% of what we're expecting it to be in the future, we can see, it's just logistical challenges. And, I don't even want to think about next year. I got off the phone with David earlier. It's going to be a big challenge because I'll talk about that in a second, how, this harvest is just a massive logistical challenge. And yeah, that's basically the reason why we choose to plant Howard trees, just to give us a bit more time to harvest all the nuts across fields. Because recall, now the whole project is fully developed. We are at 150 hectares, and you have about 2 weeks more or less, depending on how the weather is like, to harvest all these 150 hectares. 40,000 trees that have to be harvested, have to be washed and dried. So, it's a big challenge. So having, essentially 10 days more, because one of the plots is a different variety that ripens earlier, just makes a whole difference when it comes to the usage of machinery in the future. So, going back to the harvest, this year, since it was, like I said, a small harvest, we decided to rely primarily on manual harvest. We bought several of the hand shakers that you can see here in action. Basically, they shake the tree, and then nuts fall down. We're collecting the nuts by hand. And during this process already, the nuts, which usually are in this green husk, the husk is being removed, and we put them in bags and transport them to our new storage facility. Here, if you remember last call, I was showing you this facility, which was back then under construction. It still is under construction, but now we have already finished building the ceiling and the walls, and this is what it looks like today. It's really great to have that here already, because now we can, use the facility for washing, for drying, and for storing our walnuts. Eventually, the facility will be, once it's finished, in about 2 years, we will plan to build our processing line there, which means, we will buy a dehusker machine, we will buy huge dryers, which are working with the gas blowers, and eventually also a cracking line and all of that. But currently, for the quantities that we have, we can manage these things by hand easily. Overall, we estimate the harvest to be around like 7 to 10 tons if in shell nuts this year. We're already in talks with some buyers. Like I said, today also these Kazakh people are coming, but generally our plan is actually to keep the nuts stored until Christmas, when demand for nuts in locally is surging, and we can, achieve the highest prices. Talking about prices, actually, over the last year, prices for nuts have surged again, which after 2 years of like huge oversupplies from the US and them dragging prices down, particularly at the start of the pandemic, it was a big relief to see prices rally significantly, which many of you guys have heard nuts did alongside any other like agricultural commodity. And locally, if you look at prices, we move above $3. In neighboring Turkey, prices are above $4, while we're looking at prices of around $3.8 in the EU. Yeah, so much actually about the situation on the farm. If do you have any comments on that from your side? Anything that of interest from you, Christoph? Because if not, I would also continue talking about some structural
Maybe you
change.
can still give some facts about the thing. How many employees do we have? Like how many people are currently doing the harvest? Things like that, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, so this year actually, like I said last year, that we actually started to with the start of the new project, we started to grow our team again. So at the moment we have 15 full-time employees, which is like we haven't hired any. Actually, no, it's not true. We hired one new tractor driver throughout the season this year. But like it's really like right now we are in this stage where we had to grow a little bit bigger, since we have almost doubled the acreage this year. And at the moment training as well. We have two agronomists that we're training and looking ahead to grow that. But we are at a very comfortable size. I think it's really good. Having added another house for employees as well, with a laboratory. And yes, 15 people. I do think there might be one or two added over the course of the next year maybe. And when it comes to like day laborers, it really depends. Like generally it's about 30 people, but when we have like harvest time right now, this might go up to 70 people every day. And yeah, it's always varying, but fixed people who are like full-time employed, it's about 15. Yeah. With the first harvest, of course, it also means that we're nearing, the first revenue distribution for our early royalty unit investors. And I wanted to, use this also to talk about that a little bit. I wanted to, make sure like we will reach out to them to see that all the data is up to date in the next couple of days. So, as we start selling the first nuts, we can make sure that the first distributions happen without any problem. For that, we will actually reach out to everyone in the next couple of days to make sure, all the data is up to date. Also, we will invite everyone to a private Slack channel so we can like improve the discussion. With that said, we also wanted to use this to make some important announcement for a change going forward. Basically, there will be a change in the counterparties for the contract, as we are going to wind down the US subsidiary and transfer all the rights and obligations to the Georgian mother company. Let me explain the reason for that. So when we initially, sought out to offer this investment, our former partner, Alex, a US lawyer, helped us with the structure. And given that he saw the treatment of the royalties in Georgia a bit unclear, we decided to structure the scheme in a way that it is today. However, as time went on, it became increasingly clear that there were certain aspects that we simply didn't had accounted for, and that the current structure would leave us, as well as investors, exposed to a number of tax risks. First and foremost, these are transfer pricing risks, but there are a number of other issues that may affect the US company and royalty unit holders. In order to address this, we hired PwC, so PricewaterhouseCoopers, one of the 4 largest tax and legal consulting companies in the world, known as Big Four. And we hired them to help us restructure the contract and make it better and safer for investors and for Walnuts.Ge alike. So after months of work now, we finally concluded this. And in essence, the contract will be transferred from the US, Walnuts.Ge USA, to the mother company, Walnuts.Ge. There's no change in the contract itself or in the content. The only change is essentially the counterparty and therefore the governing law under which the contract signed, which is now becoming Georgia. It is PwC's view that the royalty contract shall be treated as interest income under Georgian tax law, which would make it taxable with 5% withholding tax. And in order to compensate the investors for such, we decided that we will be offering an additional 10% in revenue distribution on every unit. So essentially, if you hold 1% of royalty distribution, you will hold 1.1% in the future. In addition, it also means that every investor who lives in a country with the tax rate with Georgia will most likely be able to claim the 5% withholding on his local tax bill. Please note that, individual situations, might vary, and depending on where you reside, it can be different. So please don't take this as tax advice. And in order to compensate, we are offering this 10%. But what I'm saying is, most likely you can set these 5% that you're paying in Georgia off with your taxes that you should pay somewhere else. While I'm honestly not really happy and reluctant about making such changes to the contract, I do think it's vital in order to mitigate problems in the future. We simply had to admit that the scheme, the way it's structured currently, that it's a mistake, but mistakes happen. So let's address them and make sure that they are straightened before they So in the next weeks, we will be reaching out to all investors with a request to confirm such transfer. Additionally, we will provide them with a letter by PwC that addresses the structure, explains in more detail onto why we chose the way it is, and give a bit more feedback on that. So please note that if for whatever reason you are uncomfortable with such change, and even though it improves the investor situation in every way, we are offering anyone a full refund plus 10% interest on the investment. Kindly note that the deadline for this is the 31st of October, so about 2 weeks' time from today, and that by that time we will need the confirmation letters of the investors, and by the 15th of November, we will be unwinding the US subsidiary. Honestly, I do believe this is not only a necessary step in order to avoid a future conflict, but it's actually a meaningful improvement of the contract for both parties. It greatly simplifies the contract, it removes cross-border tax risk, and puts a counterparty in place that has a physical presence in the country where the value is created. Plus, with Walnuts.Ge, the counterparty also actually has a huge asset base, which is the farm itself. Finally, in order to conclude this on a more positive note, over the last 4 years, there have been so many challenges in this. if it's operational, because we're dealing with an agricultural business that is difficult by itself in the sector, with walnuts in particular, be it regulatory, dealing with the contract changes and working with these lawyers, which was also a big challenge, or financial, since there's always things you didn't plan and that you have to come up with the money. Honestly, had we all known this, things would probably look very different today. But we didn't, and we learned the things the hard way, which sometimes makes you go and have a little bit of skepticism. But now, 4 years later, I really feel like I'm actually reaching the same optimism again that brought me into this project to begin with. The only difference is now that all the doubts that I had 4 years ago are actually now much closer to knowledge. They have been replaced with things that I feel I know now. Many of the mistakes that we made throughout the years now are replaced with internalized processes that we do time and again, over and over. We have grown a great team, that runs the orchard every day. Like I said, it's 15 full-time employees, and we are continuing to grow. Like, we have built many, relationships with the ministries here. Everyone is really excited. People who see the project are actually amazed by how it looks, not only here in Georgia, but even all the foreign consultants that we come. So it's been really a journey, and this journey, is just starting. Ironically, like the last 2 years during this pandemic actually have really reinforced my beliefs that made me start this whole thing 4 years ago. And I do believe more in this project than I've actually believed ever before, and I'm really excited about what's to come. So yeah, that's kind of the conclusion of all of this. Hopefully everyone can understand that and see as positive situation as I do see it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's much
Any
better
comments?
anyway, to be shareholder of a Georgian company where the value is created than LLC letterbox company. I think back then some people didn't want to invest because of that, and now they potentially could. Yeah.
It's true, honestly, I do see it the very same way. I mean, back then, I'll be honest, we didn't had the ability, to structure the project to expense on coming up with a good scheme. We were lucky to have a partner who was ready to take that on himself. I mean, unfortunately, turns out that he didn't know it exact or every aspect of it very well. And I think we just have to face that now and understand, okay, yeah, it was probably not the right way of doing it, but yeah, let's fix this and let's make it better for everyone. And yeah, while not a shareholder, but a counterparty to the Georgian company, of course it's much better to have a counterparty which sits on that very farm that you're looking at right now, which like the big problem is actually the transfer pricing, because the contract basically forces us, like, it works fine if we're selling abroad, because it's then the US company works on an international basis. But we don't know if we're selling abroad. It seems like this year we're not going to sell abroad. Are we going to sell abroad in the future? I don't know. And at this point, it starts to create certain problems where we don't want to face these problems, and they might actually turn out to have a negative financial impact on both the US company as well as the investors. So I think rather than paying that out in a wrong way in taxes or in another way, it's better to restructure it and have it solved in a way where you don't face any of these problems to begin with. And that's why we're doing it now before we actually start distributing any of the funds.
Yeah, I mean, interest is great. You already mentioned it. In many countries, the double tax treaties lower the 5% to 0. Even in some tax havens, that will be the case. So basically, nothing and then still 10%. I think everyone will take that offer. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so too. Right. Any questions from anyone else, or?
Yeah, we will just look in the comments. So far, only great work and great summary.
Yeah. Well,
Here's
again,
one question: where is
like I said,
this? Maybe we didn't really speak about it. Where in Georgia are we? We're in Kakheti. Where is Kakheti? Can you tell a bit about the region?
Yeah, sure. Like, we are basically 70 kilometers east of the capital of Tbilisi. It's near the city of Sagarejo, and yeah, it's about 1.5 hours drive. If somebody is in Georgia, wants to see the project, I'm there almost every weekend. So just holler at me, and I'll be happy to take you out.
Yeah, I met a guy yesterday at a conference here. He also visited you, and he was very grateful to be welcomed with a lot of whiskey and nice food. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure who it was, because this is the general procedure, standard procedures, right? You know that, and yeah. No, honestly, like, if you want to see the project, come and see. Like, you will see it's real, and if you know a little bit about agriculture, and you've seen other projects before, not only is it real, but it's actually going really well. I'm honestly, like I said, it's the absolute truth. I've come to the point where I've been really optimistic, where things, the way I see things are going, they're actually really going the right way, and I'm really looking forward to what's to come.
Yeah, very professional. I visited in July. I will obviously visit again next year at some point. And yeah, when we have the big harvest, then we make a big party, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my plan was to do that last year, and hadn't Corona come and crossed my plans, we would have already had a huge party there. But I guess the more we wait, the more nuts there will be there, and that will make the party only more so funny. Yeah.
Okay, great, Ivo. I think that's everything. You mentioned
Great.
also almost all the aspects. I think there's not really questions. And in the end, we did a couple of webinars already, and they're actually also uploaded on YouTube. So you can look into other aspects there. And otherwise, just write Ivo anytime.
Right. Email is info@walnuts.ge. But yeah, in case you needed to know. All right, Christoph. Then thank you again for hosting me today, and I hope I'll see you very soon.
Yes, I hope to see you soon, and I hope the walnuts further grow, as stated before. Thanks for listening and watching, and
Yeah.
I'll see you in the next webinar in some days or weeks. We will announce something soon. And yeah, with you, probably an update somewhere sometime next year.
Probably, yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. Take it easy.